What is up, guys? Hope you're having a great day today. My name is Chris Weiser here with my good, trusty companion, Ryan O'Hara. What's up, Ryan?
How's it going? You seem to get like way too happy about that music.
That was good music, though. You got to play like royalty-free music on these things, so when you're streaming, it doesn't zap it. Because I mean, if it was up to me, I'd be playing like some hip hop stuff. That'd be what I would do. So anyway, so we got a great webinar for you guys today. Very, very excited. This is like one of Ryan's, would I say, your favorite subjects?
It definitely used to be my favorite subject, but it's funny coming with my background. So for those of you who don't know, I was a member of this program with my MSP for 5 years, and then sold my MSP to come work on the other side of the fence here. So kind of my journey coming through this program, the way that we send our members through still to this day. I came into that program very much like, I love the tech, like, I don't want to get out of this.
It's a typical MSP way, right? Yeah. I'm tech focused, et cetera, right?
Yeah. So I mean, I still find this stuff very interesting, but once I learned the sales process and kind of went through that, that became my addiction. Cindy calls it your dopamine hit, right? Yeah. I was having so much fun going through that sales process, getting people upgraded, getting people on the stack that I knew that they needed to be on. Like, that's the part of it that was really fun. So I still really, really love this stuff, but it was really about making sure that I knew that my clients were protected.
Yeah. So we got a pretty cool group of content today. I'm going to talk a little bit about sales stuff, as I always do. Then Ryan's going to go into basically how to build a profitable tech stack for you. Now, there's a couple things that I'm going to touch on, and I'm going to kind of go back and forth with Ryan a little bit as he takes over and does his content. But I'm still very much, and I want you guys to keep this in mind, I'm still very much all about strategy and scale as a business owner. And while I say this a lot during our onboarding calls with our clients every week, is you need sales and process to be your main focus. You need sales and lead gen and revenue as an owner to be really what you mainly focus on. Now, that does not mean that you neglect IT. That does not mean you neglect service or any of those things. But your role as the owner should be lead gen, revenue, cash flow. That's what your goal should be. And that's what you should be focusing on. And that should be your priority. And then all those other things become great, including making sure that you're really profitable with your tech stack, which is what we're going to talk about today. Also really scalable with your tech stack, which Ryan's going to talk a little bit about today as well. Both of those things really, really matter. And here's another thing that I'm going to tell you. I'm going to get into this with my content a little bit here. You are a cybersecurity provider, whether you want to be one or not right now. So whether you think, and most MSPs, I'll be the first one to say, I was scared of security. I was scared of compliance. I was like, it was stuff that I didn't want to focus on. It's one of the reasons I sold my company 8 years ago. It's stuff that I was like not super comfortable with because I don't have a strong tech background. I'm much more of a sales and marketing guy than I ever was I was a decent tech. If I was better with people than I was with computers, honestly. So it's stuff that I want you really be conscious of and be aware of, because these are the really, really important things as you got. Got a couple other things that we got. We got some prizes that we're going to be doing today. We got a live chat going on for our webinar attendees. We have a massive crowd in the webinar with us today. We also have another massive crowd watching simulcasted, because right now we're in StreamYard webinar. We got a bunch of people live with us today, and that we are on Facebook, 2 Facebook pages. We're in 3 Facebook groups. We're in a LinkedIn page and our YouTube channel. So we're across multiple platforms. We're probably going to have thousands live with us today. We got a lot of people on the chat talking. So you guys use the chat. Ryan's going to monitor it while I go live and present. And then as we flip up, Ryan's going to present for a little while. We probably got about, I'd say 60 to 75 minutes today. Ryan, would you say that?
Yep.
Give or take total. So pay attention, grab your notes. I'm going to get into my content. You guys that are live with us on the chat, please participate. Please ask questions. We're going to be doing some prizes on today's webinar as we go as well. And we'll come out of that at the bottom. Ryan, you ready to roll?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Okay, sounds good. All right, let me just get my screen shared here. Should be good. You see my screen? Good to go?
You're good.
Awesome. All right, so today's title, obviously, is How to Build a Profitable MSP Tech Stack. A couple things that I am going to promise you guys coming out of today's webcast. Oops, I screwed that up. Damn it. So we're going to show you how to add a profitable tech stack. Forget the leads, but we're going to show you how to do the profitable tech stack today. Ryan, any specific things that you're going to work on with that?
I think the biggest thing that I think people will find interesting, I'm absolutely going to go through the tech stack on a tool category by tool category basis. But the meat and potatoes of what I'm going to talk about is that you're not going to be talking about that stack to your clients, to your prospects.
Okay.
You want to deliver that service, but you don't talk about it.
Yeah, what I will say on the bottom of this, we're sharing real skills and strategy that your very own clients are using to do this stuff. And our clients are actively working on these things all the time. And this is the same stuff that we teach our coaching clients. If you stay until the end with me today, we're going to be giving away multiple prizes. One winner is going to get a $100 Amazon gift card. A second winner is going to get a $75 Amazon gift card. If you're out of the States, we'll just give you PayPal cash or something like that. We'll make it work. So I'm not too worried about that. But one thing I will say is if you are here and you're going to be a winner, you have to provide your company MSP email address. This is mandatory. So if you don't have one, if you have a Gmail or Yahoo or we had a guy a couple weeks ago with an AOL email address, it's not going to work. So you have to provide your actual MSP email address. And then also everyone on this webcast is going to have a chance to win a $50 gift card, but you have to stay until the end. A couple other quick updates for me. Number one, please pay attention. That means no tickets, no client calls, no distractions. This is real content that's tech focused today. We don't do this a lot on the tech focused side because I'm very cash flow, very revenue, I'm very sales, I'm very money. But Ryan likes to talk about this tech crap and RMMs and PSAs and all this other stuff. So we're going to go through that today. And we're going to give you some real stuff that's going to get you to a best-in-class 80% gross profit margin. It's really important things to think about. So if you're serious about changing your business, serious about changing what you do, how you manage your company, how you work inside your MSP, please give us 60 to 75, maybe even up to 90 minutes all the way through the end. Please do that, and it's worth it. A couple other quick housekeeping items for you guys. We have our MSP MRR tour. This is Q1 and Q2 coming up here. I'm going to show you guys what this is. We're already through Dallas, Phoenix, New Orleans, and Raleigh. We're already through all those. Coming up yet, we have Boston in a couple weeks. I think it's about 3 weeks away, give or take. Here, we got Boston coming up on April 25th. You can register at events.sevenfiguremsp.com. Hit that QR code if you want to. Ryan, if you want to maybe throw that in the chat for me, that'd be great. Put the full HTTPS in there so they can just click on it, whatever platform they're on as well. Also coming up is we have our live event, our big 3-day live event in Indianapolis, Indiana. That is called Fast Track Your Way to MSP Success. That is May 7th, 8th, and 9th at the Wyndham Indianapolis West. We are stoked about this event. Got so many cool things. We have our evening event on Wednesday. That's the 8th at the Dallara IndyCar Factory. We have multiple IndyCar drivers coming. We got a sprint car driver. I grew up in racing, guys. I sponsored race cars my whole life. Raced in racing, raced go-karts. In fact, this is funny. I'm going to show you guys this really quick. My mom sent me this last week. She sent me a text message. She's like, "Oh, look what I found." I'm like, "Great, Mom. Way to bring this out." This is me, Ryan, in my very first go-kart.
Nice.
Yeah. So that was me in my very first go-kart. I was like, I don't know, 5, 6. So it was kind of cool back then. So I did that. I upgraded to mini sprints and full-blown 360 and 410 cubic inch sprint cars. So I, raced gear. I'm actually a gearhead more than I'm a tech guy, which is kind of funny because I grew up in all that stuff. So kind of cool.
A lot of people are looking forward to meeting you in the simulators for that too.
Oh, it's not even going to be close. Actually, Rico is going to be coming up for that.
Yeah.
I think Connor Daly, IndyCar driver, is going to be joining us in the Sims as well. We got a couple other surprise guests because all these guys live in Indy, so it's kind of cool. So I got a lot of connections in that. I don't know if Ryan, you also saw I was at the NASCAR race last weekend here in Austin. My friend Christopher Bell got second, so that's kind of cool.
Nice.
So you guys can register. It's events.sevenfiguremsp.com, or you can hit that QR code. You can get a $1 sign up with that QR code. So don't hesitate to come. Now, keep in mind, you got to show up. Otherwise, we charge you full amount. So be mindful of that. Okay, next couple things we got here. A little bit about our coaching team. Obviously, you see me. Look, I'm losing weight, man. My face getting thinner. I'm very proud. I'm down like 40 pounds in 2 years, so I'm stoked about that. We got me, Chubby Chris on that picture. Chubby Chris.
Updated.
I know. I need to do that. That's only like 6 months ago. That's kind of crazy. So we got Chubby Chris. We got Cindy Phillips, who's our head of sales coaching. Cindy is a freaking machine. We will be back with Cindy in a couple months. on a webinar. Again, we're kind of rotating them around here in 2024, doing various different ones. You guys get stuck with me every month, twice a month, but you see Ryan, Cindy. We got Lindsay Badillo, who's our head marketing coach. She was on with us 2 weeks ago. We did an amazing webinar.
People are still talking about that one.
That thing was a cold calling webinar. If you guys didn't see that, it was absolutely magical. And then we got Ryan here as well, and you guys get Ryan here today. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my stuff here, and then we're going to transition over to Ryan here in the next like 10 minutes or so. So a couple things in the MSP market are different. And I know many of you on today's call are a little bit brand new to Chris Weiser, brand new to seven-figure MSP. And I want you to understand that things have changed in the MSP marketplace. And you have to be very, very mindful of this. This is very important things to think about. Now, thinking about what has changed, and I want you to be out there and kind of open your mind to this. Think about the way that you support, and Ryan's going to go through a good chunk of this today because the tech stack we're using now is completely different. How did we support clients? Let's just go back to when I sold my MSP of June of 2015. How did we manage support clients back then versus how do we manage support clients now? Now, I understand how some MSPs hasn't changed, but keep in mind, we now have the law, we have legislation, we have insurance companies, we have compliance, we have the FTC safeguards, we have the SEC stuff coming, we have all this stuff around, and it's around the world that these are continually being a problem to where they're basically saying, if you touch technology, and this goes into my open, if you touch tech, in fact, the insurance companies have gone as far to say that if you have, we manage your IT so you can manage your business on your website. And Ryan, we had a great review of this on our last Wednesday all hands call for our clients with Paige Taylor Bennett, who's our in-house counsel, to where we reviewed a current lawsuit where an MSP is getting sued because they had things on their website like we manage your cybersecurity, and they are being held basically responsible for a breach on a client network. So things have completely changed in the MSP marketplace, but more importantly, think about what it looks like for your clients. Those businesses are not prepared. I want you to think about this. Think about the epidemic we have in the entire world right now, not just the United States, but not just North America, the entire world of cybersecurity problems. Because, and I'm going to go out on a limb here and maybe be a little bit polarizing and even say, for the most part, the IT industry, the tech person, the MSP, the computer shop, all the way down to your dime store guy. There was a person, Ryan, that showed a couple weeks ago in one of our groups of an ad that some guy put up like in a local Facebook group or a Reddit channel or something like that, where he's like, hey, I'll hang your shelving units. I'll clean your gutters. I'll install servers. Like it was like, he's a jack of all trades doing all this stuff and had really no rules or no guidelines.
Yeah, so I don't think handyman and cybersecurity really go.
They don't really go together. They definitely don't. So I want you guys to think about all the stuff that's changed, all the stuff and how we could be supporting your clients, but then coming back around to, we all know, and it's funny because I talk about how the good, better, best is dead, and I'm going to talk about that in a few minutes here. But you think about the question, if we as IT people had the choice between, basically, if we said, hey, we have unlimited budget at every single client, would we put in the good, the better, or the best? Every tech person that's worth their weight in anything is going to say, well, I put in the best. So why don't we? Well, we've allowed the clients to dictate this entire path because we don't have enough business. We don't have a smoking gun. We're scared of it. We don't want to talk to them about sales. We don't want to talk to them about cyber. Like there's all these million reasons why the MSP has that they don't want to talk to people, but it brings it all the way around to your clients will get hacked. There's no, and keep in mind, this is being attempted all day long, every single day. Spam emails, port attacks, DDoS attacks. Like there's stuff that's happening. Your clients are getting barraged nonstop, 24/7, 365. And you can't, I don't care how good you are. I don't care how good your tools are. I don't care how good your stack is, how good your techs are, blah, blah, blah. You can't stop it all. But your clients really think you can. But at the same time, they're out there treating IT support as a bargain basement service. They've always been sold certain things, certain ways, mostly with being able to dictate the path of support, and also mostly being able to say, well, I just don't want to pay a whole lot, so Just do it month to month. Just do all these other things. You heard Brett Gallant, one of our guys on the call this morning, Ryan. Brett's been in our program 2.5 years, and he had a guy literally pretty much talk him into just doing a project last week. And he's like, man, what did I do? Oh my God, this is what I let this guy completely pull the wool over my eyes because I wanted the deal. It happens to the best of us. It's part of the deal. And the big problem with all of this is your clients, as you sit out there, they see you as their IT company, whether it's, like I said on this one, IT support, help desk, IT support, break fix, installs, all these other things. They just assume it's all the same. Think about the objections you get when you talk to prospects. Are you looking for a new IT guy? You're worried about cybersecurity. Oh, no, we have an IT guy. We're fine. They lump it all together. They don't understand. So you have to be the one that trailblazes, that leads the charge to them, saying you have to do more about cybersecurity, Mr. Client. And you have to mandate it. You can't let them say, oh, but I don't want to. Okay. No, it's got to be like, boom. So a couple things that you have to do. You have to sell and you have to lead with cybersecurity. This is mandatory. A couple things that you can do, and Ryan's also going to come around on this today for you guys. Thing one, get rid of your good, better, best. One plan, full stack. Now, the only caveat I'll give you on that, the only allowance I'll give you on that is if you want to have a good, better, best, is all three of them better have full-blown cyber. And then maybe your good doesn't have on-site labor. But my problem is it's not simple anymore. And what happens when you give people multiple options? What do they choose? They choose the crap. Okay, if you want to be the one that controls whether they get the lesser one, that's fine. But if you offer all three, they're going to take the cheapest. So my suggestion, lead with cybersecurity, offer your best plan. In fact, most MSP insurance companies, Willow Risk and Skyber, TechRug, some of these other companies that are out there that are brokers and broker dealers for insurance companies, they mandate now. They're expecting you to put a line in the sand that says, I offered you my best, you chose less. You at least have to show them. That's the big deal. So eliminate the good, better, best. Just go to the best and offer that. Why do we want full stack only? You have to be able to show you weren't negligent. This is mission critical. You have to be able to show, look, I ran a cybersecurity risk assessment. I presented them my best offering. They declined it. I gave them a letter stating that here's what's going to happen when they have a breach. They're going to get hacked. So I showed this pattern of support so you can be like, yeah, you got hacked, but it ain't my fault. Because think about this. How will you or your clients in that scenario refute a charge of gross negligence? You have to be able to say, well, I tried. You were the one that was negligent, not me. Really, really important stuff. Okay, so I want you to think about that. Ryan, anything in the chat that we should call attention to?
We had a question about how does the compliant tech stack reduce the risk of data breaches and cyber threats, and what are the implications of a business's bottom line? I know we're gonna talk about that stuff, so I just kind of teased the answer a little bit. Basically, our job today, nobody can stop 100% of all attacks. Our job is to put the client in the best position to have their claim paid. And if we're not doing the things from a standpoint of the business's bottom line, like they're trying to save money, so they're not implementing a tech stack, good luck getting that claim paid, because the insurance companies are requiring a minimum level of service. They're requiring a minimum level of incident response when that breach occurs. And there's a whole lot of gray area there for gross negligence that they're able to apply.
I agree with that 100%. Side note on this, and I'm going to come around to this a little bit, but basically it is on you now to just show them, think about this. Everyone actually, I'm going to hide that a second. Everyone in every business right now is actually spending money on zero ROI risk management. Mm-hmm. It's called insurance, health insurance, insurance, all their different insurances. What is the best case scenario? What's the best case scenario ROI on cybersecurity coverage? Hopefully zero. We don't want to ever have to use cybersecurity insurance, but if we have to, we want to be ready. That's the big factor, right? Okay. Somebody else said here, Henry said, I clicked on the wrong one. No, there's this one. Do you have the resource or article of the MSP that got sued? Ryan could probably put that in here. It was
Yes.
on, well, that was on,
It was a channel site, I think, but I'm sure I have it here.
Yeah, we'll find it and we'll put it in the chat for you guys. But it was on an MSP channel website. I think it was on Channel E2E. Wasn't it? It was on channel-e2e.com.
That sounds right.
Yep, that's where it was. So it was there. So we'll get back to that. Okay, a couple more things here as we go. Gonna get going into the rest of my slides here. Step number 2 on this is every single existing client, every single new prospect. This is a non-negotiable for you from here on out. Everyone gets a client discovery risk assessment, not an orange jump drive that scans automatically. Okay, not a bad product, but it's got to be deeper than that, guys. You got to be asking very deep questions now. You got to be looking at their bank account. You got to be looking at how much revenue they're doing. You got to be looking at their bank account and seeing if they have MFA turned on their bank account. You have to see if they actually have approval process for sending out wire transfers and ACHs and all this other stuff. Who holds company credit cards? Do they have password protection and MFA on all of their company credit card accounts? Looking at how much money they make a month, looking at how many patents they have, looking at all of that stuff because it's completely relevant, and putting it in front of them and saying, that's fine if you're going to tell me that you're going to just switch back to paper, but are you ready to eliminate all of this stuff? They don't understand yet. They're not ready. Their brain has not shifted from IT as a commodity, which is basically installing new things and fixing what breaks, to IT as a network necessary service that they have to manage risk. Our job is to flip that. So we present the best, including full cyber. We justify it by educating them, by doing a client discovery risk assessment. Obviously, we want to gather data. We want to find pain points and tech issues. We want to find that pain and tie it together with emotional ties. But more importantly, we have to know their network and their data better than the hackers. And it's not how much data they have, it's the type of it that really matters. Namely, what are the hackers after now? I want you guys to think about that. The hackers aren't even really trying to ransom anymore. They're more ransoming to release data or to not release data because they just want money. That's what the hackers want. They figured out that it's a much easier path to just take the money and get people to wire it and maybe ransom to not release the data and give them bad rep, but they're actively about the money. But you also have to show that prospect and that client. And this is the stuff that makes MSPs squirm in their seats, for the record. They do not like having these difficult conversations. Mm. You have to show the client what a hack will really do. Think about that. Think about what a breach does to a company. Think about, like, we had one over the weekend that happened to one of our members, and it literally brought the client to its knees. Mm-hmm. Luckily, our member was completely ready for it and did a great job, did full incident response. The whole thing's going to get paid by insurance. But if he wasn't prepared, he sent me a message. It was like, thank you. Thank you for preparing me for this, because I had no idea it would be this level. Even though he's been with us for 2 years, had no idea. So we also want to show that. Here's a little deliverable for you guys. Get your phones ready, get your screenshotters ready, because this is a QR code, but it's basically a way for you to do this on your own. So step 1, eliminate that good, better, best, have only the best. Step 2, everybody gets a CSRA, a cybersecurity risk assessment. We have a couple of deliverables around that, but namely, this is what you want to do. And you can see this is our full run the play worksheet that you can do. And the whole concept of this is, list all the accounts that have paid you, run a full CSRA on them. CSRA is cybersecurity risk assessment. Start running your scans, gather all your data, do all your questions, and then you come back to presenting your risk findings. Now, in our coaching program, we have a full, done, complete PowerPoint template that walks you through exactly what to do and how to sell and how to educate the prospect, because we're leading them down a path and we're telling a story of what a hack will do. But a couple of key things with this is, do not talk tech. Don't talk about what your service is. Don't talk about your tech stack. Don't talk about the tools. Don't talk about how big your hard drives are. Don't talk about how long your backup retention is. None of that shit matters, guys. What matters to owners is the stuff that moves the needle. What moves the needle in business? Pretty much every owner around the world. Cash money records, folks. That's what moves the needle. Show them how much money they potentially have at risk. Show them how much money you're protecting. Note, I didn't say the word prevent. I didn't say the word guarantee. Don't use those words. You can't. You cannot prevent anything. You can't guarantee anything, period. Make sure they know that. It's okay to state that. It's okay to talk about it. In fact, I'd say it's mandatory to talk about that now.
Mm-hmm.
Really critical. So
and Chris, what I would add to that would be, I think one of the common traits we see with MSPs, almost to our own detriment, is that everybody wants to help their customers. Think about it from that perspective. Is it more helpful or less helpful to let them know what they really stand and have at risk with regard to cybersecurity, or not talk to them at all because it's uncomfortable? You need to help them, and having this conversation is the first step.
Yeah, absolutely. So coming around to that, then we don't talk tech. We educate the client on cybersecurity. Make sure they understand you are going to get hacked. I cannot stop it. Most MSPs, I will tell you, are like, I can't say that to my client. You better say that to your client. I promise you that. Now, how you deliver it is key, obviously, but you have to say that. And then as you talk about your CSRA findings, after they're like, holy crap, this is a real problem. Yeah, here's what we found on your network. I know you thought we were probably doing this, but I'm here to tell you times have changed. We have to do things differently now. I know that you pay us X amount per month, but we have to talk about different things. Now, you don't have to put this in, Mr. Client, but you better at least, my job is to make sure you're aware. You don't have to take the medication, but I'm going to let you know, here's what it does. That's the kind of concept you want. And you want to create that emotion and that need. And our job, we call this the risk light bulb. Our job as MSP owners, presenters, salespeople, whoever you have, is to turn on the risk light bulb. They have to get it, that things got to go on. They have to understand, holy crap, we're going to get hacked, and this is what's going to happen when we do. And if you walk out of that room with them being like, well, this isn't going to happen to me, I'm not going to say you didn't do your job, but you definitely didn't get the message through. Now, there's always that one jerk client. I get it. I understand that. There's always somebody that knows better. It's way better to be able to say, look, I ran a CSRA on you. I presented. I offered you my full package. You declined it. I gave you a letter that stated, here's where we stand. We call it in our program the risk acceptance letter. And that's fine. I'll continue to service you. We're never going to tell you to walk away from money. We're never going to tell you to walk away from MRR, guys. But we're going to say, know where your risk is and your liability sit. And then as you present, as you get to the right prospects, as you get to the right clients, you're charging more. You're doing the right things. Note, I said 80% gross profit margin. Ryan's going to walk through that. And we eliminate the price objection by showing them they have to have this. How many of you, think about this, how many of you have actually filed an insurance claim for your car? How many of you have actually filed an insurance claim for your E&O insurance, for your general liability insurance, for your, maybe even your cybersecurity coverage, but you still have it? Why? Risk management. So we get that, but we don't understand that the same things applies to MSPs. Our job has to be conveying that message to the prospect, and actually, especially to your existing client. Okay, Ryan, you got anything? Otherwise, I'm going to
We've got a question in the chat. Does this apply even when the breach is internal?
Absolutely, because here's the deal, guys. The breach internally, first of all, you got to find it. You got to discover it. Somebody's got to pay that bill. Somebody's got to figure out the downtime. Also, here's what I'm going to tell you. The battle you're facing now is probably more against the insurance companies than anybody. Because what are the insurance companies in the business of? They're in the business of making money. They're not in the business of, oh, we're going to pay out this claim because we're nice guys. It doesn't work that way. They're going to look for a scapegoat. They're going to look for somebody they can dump the blame on so they don't have to pay out the money. And they're going to try and pass the buck. So you need to be able to insulate yourself. Really important stuff. Okay, Ryan, I'm going to head over to you here.
All right. So this is one of my favorite topics that we have in the Facebook group. Whenever the topic even remotely touches $300 per seat in our IT and business owners group, I always bust out the popcorn because there's a ton of different comments. I mean, those threads end up like 200, 300 comments long. And it's just really interesting to read through some of the responses that we see. So just a few of them. How are you charging that much? Where are you located? There's no way I can do that where I'm at. That's probably one of the more common ones.
Probably the biggest one, yeah.
Yeah. That's great, but what are your margins? How can you gouge your clients like that? That's, a lot of people's first response is because they don't believe that they have that much value, that automatically we're gouging our clients. What are you providing for that much? What's in the stack? So it always boils down to pretty much those things right there. And today we're going to lift the curtain a little bit and talk about how to take and build that profitable MSP stack. So what I want to start off with is kind of another question. Who knows better what a business needs these days when it comes to cybersecurity and IT for that matter? Is it them? They seem to think that it is, and we seem to allow them to go down that path. A lot of MSPs that I talked to, when I started my MSP back in the day, like the sales process was really, how much money do you got and what do you want? It wasn't us telling them what they needed. It wasn't us educating them as an expert in this field. But things have changed. Cyber attacks are way up. And we need to make sure that we're informing our customers that that's the situation. So when it comes down to it, are you going to be the expert? Or is your MSP a glorified retail store? And you're just allowing your customers to go down the aisle and grab the things that they think that they need with usually very little context, very little understanding of what they need. Or worst case scenario, somebody who knew a little bit about IT back in the day and knows enough to be dangerous. We no longer can approach our customers like a retail store clerk. We have to be the doctors. We have to be the lawyers. That's the world that we live in these days. And that's the approach that shows the value that we're going to talk about. We need to embrace our expertise and stop allowing the client to dictate the path of service. I mean, at the end of the day, as an owner of an MSP, as somebody who works in an MSP, do you want to be treated like a retail store clerk? Or do you want to be treated with the respect that you see a doctor or a lawyer have? Because that's the position that we sit in right now. And we need to make sure that we follow that. We know better and we need to educate them. That's exactly why Chris was talking about we need to make sure that we're letting them know what's really going on. We need to lead with what we as the expert know they need in today's environment. And what we know is the most important part of our MSP stack is security. And you cannot sacrifice the security parts of the stack. All of these layers, in a properly set up cybersecurity stack that we're going to go through, all of these layers work with each other, complement each other. You can't have, as somebody who doesn't know what's going on, have somebody go through and look at that cybersecurity stack as a menu and say, okay, well, yeah, I'll take this. I don't need that. I'll take this. Because we know you pull one part out of that stack, and then maybe 3 others are basically useless at that point. You know that. Your customers don't know that. And what's going to be the driving force of all of this? Regulation is coming. It's going to happen. It's slowly leaking out, but we're going to quickly be in a position where these businesses don't have any choice. MSPs will probably be there first as the providers of these types of services, making sure that they're doing those things internally. But insurance is definitely catching up and it's one of the driving factors of all of this. So some of the things that insurance companies are now requiring, proper cybersecurity infrastructure. Okay. We've seen over the last 2-3 years, those cybersecurity questionnaires that your clients are receiving, that you're receiving, going from nothing to 1 page to 3 pages. I've seen one as long as 12 pages at this point. So the insurance companies are asking for specific things, requiring you to have specific things. And that's the black and white stuff. They're still leaving that gray area on the back end to where they can still call gross negligence depending on how the hack occurred. And that's one of the other reasons why they're also requiring proper incident response and forensics. Used to be you could just say we had a cyber attack, give them minimal information, they filed the claim. Now they're requiring proper incident response from a qualified incident response company. Sometimes it's one that they choose or they give you a choice of a group of incident response companies. Sometimes you can bring whatever one that you want to the table, but you can't, if you really want to make sure that that claim is going to be paid, no more can you go in and just do a wipe and reload and expect to have them get that claim paid. That is essentially contaminating a crime scene at this point. So I caution MSPs this all the time. There's a lot of really, really smart people in the channel. Not everybody is qualified for incident response. And probably the majority of MSPs, I would argue, are not qualified for actual incident response and actual forensics. It's so important to make sure that you partner with an incident response company that you can work with to do those types of things. And even better, having those negotiations with your customers and their insurance companies before a breach even occurs. Because just like Chris said, no matter what we do, we can't stop 100% of attacks. It's all about preparation and recovery, reducing the risk as much as we can so they're not likely to get hit. But we want to make sure that we're able to recover them, get their claim paid on the back end. And all of that stuff kind of comes into play with all of that. Ultimately, you don't want to be the one left eating that risk sandwich. If you're not having these conversations with your customers, just like Chris pointed out, they are assuming that you are doing everything that needs to be done in order to protect them. And that goes for even break fix. I have had break fix customers who have thought, I thought you were doing this already for break fix. It's again, just another example. Like, we know what we're doing. They are assuming the majority of what we're doing. And we can't assume that our customers know all about this. In fact, we have to assume the opposite of that. You need to make sure you're having this conversation. That's why you need to lead with what your recommendations are for them. Let them make that conscious decision to either accept their risk or see the value and the differentiation between what you're offering and what maybe another company that they've worked with in the past is offering. In most cases, the feedback that we get from our members, especially the new ones coming in and just going through and running this process the first time, it's pretty common that they will go in and have a conversation with somebody and go up against a much larger MSP who's not asking these types of questions. And it doesn't matter about price at the end of the day, because the differentiator is there, because their risk light bulb was lit up, because they were talking about things that no other MSP or IT provider had talked to them about before. And they didn't want to be left. They understood that they were eating the risk sandwich at this point, and they wanted to protect themselves against what could happen because of that. So all of that boils down to, what does a 7-figure MSP security stack look like? So that big question there that we get a lot. That's great. $300 a seat is great, but what's included? What's included? So I'm going to walk through kind of from a category level what some of these tools are. I'm not going to get into what vendors provide which tools, just because there's so many out there and it changes every day. I'm going to start with kind of the categories of tools, and this was all based off of CIS version 8. Most of the frameworks are going to be loosely related and mappable to each other, so this should apply to most of the common cybersecurity frameworks that are out there. Although this is just from a technology standpoint. If you truly want to be compliant, and I think as an MSP, you should, at the very least, you also need to fill in those gaps from a standpoint of written policies and documentation, not just the tool stack. Because there's a big piece of compliance to these cybersecurity frameworks that is completely policy driven. Okay, so just make sure that you take a look at those stuff. And I'll talk a little bit more about that as we wrap this up again today too. So starting off with support services, and I am not going to spend a whole lot of time on this because this is all the stuff that most MSPs are doing today. I would even tell customers and prospects that I talk to, I'm not going to talk to you about this stuff that much either, because this is the easy stuff. I would straight up tell people you can go and call 5 MSPs and probably most of them will be able to provide a reasonably good level of service on these types of things. This is the traditional MSP stack. This is the stuff that we've all done and always done. Okay, so I'm not going to go into this very much. Now we start getting into the new stuff. Hang on. Skip through that. The cybersecurity stack, the new standard. This is the way that you need to be looking at things. And the first part is, and I start out here because this is kind of your base, your foundation for how you're going to build out your stack, because nobody's stacks are going to be identical. Of the hundreds of members that we have, I would argue there's probably not 2 that have the same stack. Everybody's got slight different variations. And this is also why we don't talk about the stack and we don't talk about tech when we're talking to our customers, because what our stack is today is very likely not going to be the same exact stack that we have 6 or 8 months down the road. And we need that flexibility to change that. That's what the cybersecurity landscape is like right now. It's constantly changing. It's constantly evolving. So I always start with centralized account management. This is kind of your foundation of how you're going to build on this. My shop, we were an Azure Active Directory, which it has a new name now. I was informed. I've been out of the mix now for like almost exactly a year today, actually, Chris. And so they've got a new name, but Azure Active Directory, I'm sure you're all familiar with. That's the stack that we built in my MSP off of.
What is that called now?
Entera, I think, ENT, something like that. I don't know. I was telling somebody the other day, I was like, it's just like the Sears Tower to me. I don't care what it's called now. It's always the Sears Tower to me.
Yeah.
So
you mean the Willis Tower or the Willis Tower?
Yes, it's the Willis Tower now, I think. Yeah. I don't know. It's very confusing. So Azure Active Directory is what we built off of. If you're an on-prem Azure Active Directory user, like whatever you're using for your centralized account management is going to, in part, kind of dictate some of the other layers that you build on top of it as you go. So I would say start here. This is what you want to go. My recommendation, just because it was super flexible, and I like to look at, the scale of my stack as well and the uniformity of it. Azure Active Directory was just super scalable, allowed us to do so many things. It was a game changer for me from a standpoint of scalability. It streamlined so much of what we did with our MSP. Mobile device management would be the next one on the list. This is one where, again, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, this was like a nice to have. Very quickly, we've got a lot of people who are more mobile. COVID taught us a lot of things about, needing to be mobile, whether it's, you're always mobile or needing to be prepared for it tomorrow. And that means you're going to have users who are going to be using things like their cell phones a lot more. They're going to be using tablets a lot more. So making sure you have means to monitor and manage those devices is really, really critical. So I think this is a key piece to any cybersecurity stack going forward.
Yeah, and you got new iPads coming out in the next 2 weeks that are basically PC replacements too. Then the new iPad Pro is going to come out.
Yeah.
Pretty much going to be, especially with iOS 18, it's going to be like borderline PC replacement. So they have to really be managed.
So now's the time to start thinking about that stuff, because you don't want to be caught with your pants down when that CEO brings in that device. They don't usually give you a couple of weeks notice to make sure that you're prepared to manage it. They're like, hey, I got this new thing. Can you get it set up for me? You want to make sure you're all caught up with this stuff and make sure you have these things in place. So mobile device management, I think, is going to be a very, very important part of your stack going forward. Obvious, clear one. This is no shock to anybody. Endpoint detection response. Definitely need to have that. This is one of those things that's typically on most of the insurance applications I see these days. Kind of a critical and honestly basic part of any cybersecurity service at this point. Data encryption. This is another one of the fun topic discussions for techies as they get into your various arguments and debates on different things. So data encryption, I think we can all agree, definitely needs to be done. Kind of the side question here, though, is BitLocker and FileVault enough? Like when you look at most of the controls that deal with data encryption, I would argue there's kind of a gray area where like I can see it both ways. But when you really drill into it and you start thinking about the safety of your customers and the safety of their data, BitLocker and FileVault are only as good as that device being unlocked and logged into. And in most cases, what we're seeing with these breaches is the attacker gets in and sits there for months at a time. So if they can get access to that data while you're logged into that computer because they're already in there remotely with a foothold, they can download that, and BitLocker and FileVault is not going to do anything for that.
Yeah, and then there's the whole data at rest, data in motion discussion too, right? And I'll still go back to now. You start to think about it. If the hackers are after money, they're not necessarily so worried about your data being encrypted is going to help you in terms of penalties and fines related to compliance, but I don't know that it's going to help you if the breach actor, the bad actor, is in there trying to witness bank credentials and stuff like that and get access to the bank account or get the staff tricked into sending out wires. Like, so it can't be just like, and part of where this comes from is we've actively seen an MSP say, I have BitLocker, it's good enough. Like, can't be that naive, guys. Like that's not a good mindset.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff to consider. And again, this is where we need to really step up and start thinking about things and making those hard decisions and explanations to our customers, because they don't understand much of what encryption is in the first place. I had one client, great client, just could not fathom even, with the explanations that I gave about cybersecurity, everything boiled down to firewall. Like everything that was security related to her was a firewall.
Yeah.
They just don't understand what we do.
People use that term very broad, like, oh, I'm
Yeah.
behind the firewall, I'm fine. Like they don't understand that. Yeah.
So it just means that they learned everything they know about cybersecurity from TV and movies.
Yeah.
Another obvious one, multi-factor authentication. I think this is one where this was one of my golden rules. There were certain things that even with a risk acceptance letter, I wasn't willing to take that risk. And if I had a prospect or a customer that refused to use multi-factor authentication, I needed to think about managing my risk just as much as I was asking them to do theirs. To me, even having them sign a document stating that they were accepting that risk was gross negligence to me. That was just my personal feeling. But I could totally see a judge looking at that going, you let them do that? That's negligence. You definitely know better than allowing them to not have multi-factor authentication. So something to consider there is a
well, and what happens in the insurance policy if MFA is not even on there? Like highly likely you become the complete scapegoat if you don't have, and the policy probably voids. And I mean, there's multiple scenarios there, but and you guys that are watching this, maybe questioning some of these things. Ryan and I have watched this stuff happen over the last 2 years. Like pretty much every scenario that we're talking about here, we've seen in action now. We've seen an insurance company completely void a policy because an MSP screwed up or was I'm going to border on willfully negligent, at the very least, naive negligent.
And they're only tightening things down. Every time we see it, it's more and more and more. So it's really, really important. And that's kind of the gist. And when I go into finishing this up, I'm going to tie all this together. Like why we do this is because we're trying to make sure that we're, again, making sure that they're going to get that claim paid. And we're covering that gray area and that gross negligence wiggle room that those insurance companies leave there intentionally. If we can go through and say, hey, we built this stack, the service that we're providing is based on a globally recognized cybersecurity framework, it's going to be really difficult for them to come back and say that you weren't doing what was reasonably acceptable to protect them or put them in the best case to succeed. That's what we're trying to do here.
Yep.
So next up, we have perimeter security. So this is either going to be the firewalls that we just talked about. SASE was something that has become more and more popular lately. It's a lot more stable than it was 4 or 5 years ago, to where it's easily able to be implemented in most scenarios. This was where we moved our stack to. It was so flexible in that we knew.
And when Ryan says our stack, this is what we're using internally.
Right.
Through
our stack internally and what I was using with my MSP.
Yeah. So I'm a big fan of SASE specifically because we are a completely digital remote company. We're on, most everybody's on a laptop around the world. So it's a lot more controllable.
Yep. So it's a firewall essentially that follows you around, and it covers your butt, because you're never going to know if that CEO that you're covering is in a Starbucks or at home or at his parents' house or someplace else. This allows you to have that visibility as it goes. And when I had my MSP, we built the stack to be secure and work from anywhere, because even my clients that worked in the office 99% of the time, that thing that we learned from COVID, they need to be able to work from home or anywhere else tomorrow, because who knows what's going to happen overnight. It also, from a operational standpoint, a lot easier to manage and a lot more predictable. So I could put just a basic firewall in every location, because the SASE was my primary, and we don't have to worry about the 3-year licensing and all that updating. It made it very, very scalable and flexible. This is one of my soapbox items: vulnerability and network monitoring. So many MSPs I see, vulnerability. I think everybody can agree from a CSRA standpoint, when we're doing an assessment of somebody's environment, scanning for vulnerabilities and CVEs that we find is really, really powerful, right? Showing them, hey, your current MSP is not protecting you. They're not doing your updates. But then when they turn around and they sell that customer and go into ongoing services, not using vulnerability scanning and then relying back on that RMM patching that the other MSP that they took over that business is probably using as well, you need to start looking at these things from a cybersecurity perspective. Patch management, I think we can all agree, needs to be done, but I think we all also know as MSPs or recovering MSPs, it doesn't always work right. And you can't count on it too. What about the situations where you have an exposed CVE in a piece of hardware or a piece of software that your customer is using where a patch doesn't exist for it yet? If you're just relying on your patch management, you don't know that ticking time bomb is sitting there. At the very least, you need to know that that's there so you can make some decisions on either, is this like something that is a non-negotiable in production and we have to accept the risk, or can we do something about it to minimize that risk? So it's really, really important to be looking at that kind of stuff and making sure that you're looking at everything through the lens of cybersecurity, not through the lens of, oh, well, manual vulnerability patching is a pain in the ass. It absolutely is, but it's also that one thing that you might get caught with your pants down with your customer if you're not keeping your eye out for that kind of stuff. So again, that's a little soapbox item for me. SaaS monitoring and response. I think this is another thing that's just so much more important than it was, 4 or 5 years ago. Most people that I talk to are using Office 365, Microsoft 365, or Google Workspace, one of those two at a minimum. There are so many different SaaS applications that you're using, that your customers are using, and those things are just sitting on the web and a lot harder to monitor than having a SIM on your network and monitoring all of that traffic. Making sure that we're watching that stuff, because this is one of your big objections that you're going to get from your prospects and your clients. Oh, we're using software as a service, or this software as a service, or that software as a service. So, it's all on them. We're good. We don't have any risk there. One, you absolutely do. Take a look at the service terms and agreements for those companies. They waive all responsibility and pass that off to you. You need to know what kind of stuff's going on there. And in most cases, those breaches are occurring because the attackers are logging in with your credentials because they stole it one way or another. Those SaaS companies, they just see that as a valid login. So making sure that you're monitoring this stuff. A lot of this is just it's more about knowing what's happening than it is about stopping it, because we all know that we can't stop all of this stuff. It's almost more important now to have the visibility to know when something gets in so that you can stop it and recover from it than it is to play that futile game of trying to keep everything out, because you're not going to be able to. Security Operations Center. This is another fun topic for people. A lot of MSPs tend to think, oh, Security Operations Center. Oh, and I got a spelling error in my slide. So we both had a slide issue today. We're using Security Operations Center with an S. So SOS. Maybe I'll just pretend I did that on purpose. So Security Operations Center, this is the means of monitoring all of that stuff that we're looking for to make sure that things are not getting past our security, because we need to know those so we can act quickly. A lot of MSPs that we talk to just think that they're going to spin up their own Security Operations Center. It's no different than a NOC to them, but it's very, very much different. If you really wanted to spin up a proper Security Operations Center, we're talking millions on a yearly basis to do that properly.
Properly done, absolutely. I mean, you look at companies that are actually doing this. The big factor, guys, is doing it the right way. You can't skimp on doing a SOC. You can't skimp on building a SOC. It's not just as simple as having a bunch of monitoring and logs happening. You have to do real-time event management, event monitoring and management, and it has to be responded to, and you have to be compliant. Like, this is not a joke anymore. It's not nearly the same as spinning up a help desk anymore. And
for sure,
it's kind of crazy we have to say this, but the amount of MSPs that Ryan and I see out in the wild that are just like, I'll just run it on my own with one of my help desk guys. That's what they believe. A lot of MSPs believe that.
And realistically, not even from a security perspective, but even from like an operations standpoint, like if you really want to streamline and make your MSP scalable, outsourcing to a managed SOC is it's a no-brainer when you look at it, right? I mean, a proper managed SOC is going to be handling a lot of that day-to-day ticketing that even your level 1 guys probably hate doing. I mean, how many people are going through their EDRs on a daily basis and just looking at false positives? So having a Security Operations Center, a managed SOC that can go through that stuff, take that workload off of your back, and look at things from a trained eye, so they know like what actually is a false positive and what needs to be further investigated, is so huge. Like, a lot of this stuff is just about, it's not even about learning a bunch of new stuff. This is something Chris talks about a lot. MSPs that we talk to that are going out and, I got to get my CISSP. I got to get this cybersecurity certification. I got to get this cybersecurity certification. In reality, if you're running an MSP, there's very little reason for you to have that certification. I look at it very similarly like to a general contractor these days. An MSP is the conduit and the project coordinator for your customer, but you're hiring experts like an incident response company, like a managed SOC, to control and handle a lot of the security aspect of things. You need to know and understand the overall arching, way that we do things, but you're not going to be the one who goes in and looks at their logs on a daily basis and has to pick out what things might be a red flag and what things don't mean anything. That's where having a trusted partner that specializes in that and does that every day is key.
Let them have all the certificates and the expense and all the management and the maintenance of dealing with all that stuff. That's what I like. If I was building an MSP right now, I would be exclusively focused on, I would have an outsourced help desk. I would have an outsourced, fully managed SOC. I would have 1 to 2 techs internally to roll trucks with that are good guys. And then I would have a good sales and marketing team. And that would be what I focus on. So you start to think about that. You become more of a broker than very similar to your general contractor comment.
And it's funny too, because we get all of that flack about talking about $300 a seat. If you were going to spin up a cybersecurity stack and spin up your own SOC to manage it, there's no way you'd be able to stay in business at $300 a seat. You'd probably be somewhere more in the arena of like $1,200 a seat. So there's ways to do this out there to keep yourself profitable and operationally, fiscally responsible, and selling at a price point that your customers will pay for. And it's all in the delivery and how you talk about this stuff. I don't care where you are in the country. We have people in very rural Canada who are selling at in excess of $300 a seat. I'm talking like there's more moose in their town than there is people. Yeah. It's possible. Next up, email security. I think this is another obvious one. DMARC management, kind of going along with that, and monitoring. DMARC is another one that I think I see a lot of MSPs. I think there's very few MSPs who aren't using DMARC. I think there's a lot of MSPs out there that aren't actually keeping an eye on it and monitoring it and looking at it. I think they send a lot of MSPs I talk to turn on DMARC and then they just send those logs to some place that they never look at. This is something that's really, really helpful, not just from a security standpoint, but if you think about our customers again and how they're clueless on a lot of this stuff, they just, and it's not through any fault of their own, but the stuff that's really important to them is, did my email get delivered to the person I sent it to? So this is another opportunity for you to take something that is really primarily a security focused situation, but it's something that on a day-to-day basis is really going to impact your customers and how they perceive your service. Zero trust application management. So this would be like a threat locker, auto elevate kind of situation. This was one that was really more of an important piece of the stack for me, because the thing that kept me up at night after we got all of our customers converted to the plans that we recommended on a full cyber stack was I don't want any of the tools that I deployed to my clients to be the conduit of the breach. There are certain things that we have to deploy on our customer systems in order to adequately protect them, but we all have to worry about and be aware of supply chain attacks, and any one of those tools that we're using to protect them could still get breached because nobody can stop 100% attacks. So this was like my extra layer, my security blanket to protect against potentially one of the tools that I deployed, on top of anything that they may have found a way to install or deploy on their machines as well. So this was more for me than it was for them, because you start talking to them about zero trust application management and it just sounds annoying. They don't want to ask permission to install stuff. It gets difficult. So this is a good one to for your own peace of mind to consider. Security awareness training, phishing simulation platform, dark web monitoring. These are all things that are also, pretty much no-brainers at this point. Most insurance applications are asking about these things and requiring these things. Password management is another easy one. It's easy to provide. It's harder to convince your customers that they need to use this. Moreover, the end users of your customers, it's usually easier to get your owners or your leaders to buy in. But getting the end users to actually do this stuff is a little bit more difficult. Coincidentally, the managed SOC that I used also provided password management and the security awareness training and the phishing simulations and the dark web monitoring. They also took on the workload of having those conversations in a white label manner with my customers to get them set up on everything that they needed for security awareness training, to follow up with them on those things. So there are very, very scalable and affordable ways to implement these things without adding in a whole lot of workload to your team, your existing team and management. I put this under, the slide got duplicated. Oh, there we go. I put this under additional security services, and this is another one where I'll get into nice debates, not arguments, but debates with people on. So this is one that I think, barring, here's my opinion on it, barring a specific compliance requirement, if you have a customer that's in a specific industry where this is a requirement of their compliance, the way that I set up my stack when I had my MSP was very Microsoft 365 oriented with Azure Active Directory. Most of our logs that were important were at one point going through 365. So my SaaS monitoring and alerting was basically my SIEM at that point. That was where most of the traffic was going. A lot of my customers weren't in the office very often, so having an on-site SIEM that was monitoring network traffic and things like that was a gigantic waste of money, because those tend to be pretty expensive. So my standpoint on this, and I talked to a couple people with certifications that tended to agree with me, unless there was a specific compliance requirement for it, the way that I had my stack built, my SaaS monitoring was essentially my SIEM at that point. So there are things and areas with these cybersecurity frameworks. You just need to read the controls and understand them to an extent, so that you can build this out. Because again, nobody's stack is going to be the same. You just need to build the stack that's going to work for you and your customers, but you still need to check the boxes of those controls. Another one that I have under additional security services that I think is going to, this is what I describe as kind of the next big thing in our industry. So, 10 years ago, we were all doing support services. Now we're starting to get more into the cybersecurity realm, and that's now unnecessary, in my opinion. The next big thing is going to be that compliance management piece. So like I said in the beginning, regulation is coming. Right now, some businesses have compliance requirements. A good majority of them probably do not. Things like FTC safeguards in the US are starting to change that to where they have, even a minor compliancy requirement. Because of the audits that are involved with having those compliance requirements, compliance management is going to become a big service that we as an MSP can offer to our customers. So what I recommend to people, if you're not servicing a vertical right now that has a specific compliance requirement, you need to make sure that your MSP is compliant to something, whether that's CIS version 8, NIST, whatever it may be. You need to build that out now. Make sure that you're compliant to it, including the documents and policies, because very soon you're going to have to provide this type of service for your customers.
Well, the other thing that's going to happen is you're going to start seeing vendors start to mandate that you are that you can show compliance.
Customers.
That's where I was going next. Yep, customers are going to start to mandate that, mostly because they're going to, especially if you're working in any type of, and I'll give you a good example. Back in early 2015, I had a client that was a construction firm for Kohl's department stores. And Kohl's had already came to them and said, you need to start showing us what your actual data center looks like, what your, show us your compliance levels back then. So if you're dealing with any, now granted that's Fortune 500, but my client was a small, a 35-person general contractor construction company. So think about that. That's where that's all going, guys. And that's where the legislation stuff's going to. Yeah. I have MSPs that are like, oh, the government will never get it together. Doesn't even matter, because they're already saying NIST and CIS 8 are out there. All the money is going to follow the insurance companies and the rest of it.
Well, and it follows your customer's ability to do business as well. I had a prospect who came to me. They did a SaaS platform for I don't remember who it was, and I probably couldn't say even if I did, but like a large organization. And that organization came down and said, "Hey, we are going to require, in order to keep using your service, we need you to do regular pen tests on this service." And so they were asking about the cost of pen tests. The price that they quoted to provide that service before the pen tests like they were very clearly working on price as their competition, right? Like they came in with the lowest price to get the business. When they found out what it was going to cost to do regular pen tests to keep into compliance with the customer's requirements, they couldn't afford to do business with them anymore. They lost that competitive advantage because it was going to cost them more to pay for the pen tests than they were even getting for the service that they were providing.
Yeah.
So all of this stuff is going to be dictated by the customers, the insurance companies, the vendors. Like this stuff is coming. It may not be the government that's the first one to do it, but it's coming one way or another. Penetration testing, like we talked about, that's something that is becoming more and more prevalent. Certain compliance requirements are having that. But again, the customers of your customer may be asking for some of those things depending on what they're providing to them. Incident response, and I would even argue this is probably no longer even an additional security service, like an add-on kind of thing. I think this is something that you need to have in your bag of tricks, because you need to be prepared for whether it's a new prospect that got breached and just found out about you, or one of your existing clients that has an incident. You need to be ready to go at a moment's notice. So having an incident response company that you already have a relationship with is going to be critical.
And I will tell you guys something that I would recommend. This is just a side note from Chris, the visionary. Start up an incident response firm in your area. Put it all over Google, put it all over everywhere. And then you can like sell stuff back and forth to your companies, and you can use that as a way to get new leads. It's a huge opportunity.
And it's a good question.
A broker too. That's all you are, is a broker in that world for the most part.
But it's a good question to ask your prospects too. Like, when you get hacked, what are you going to do? Because most of them have no clue what to do in that case. Like the best answer they're going to come up with is, well, we're going to call somebody like you. But they don't understand, like, every second matters when you get into that situation. If you have to call around and find somebody, or if you call your MSP and they don't have a plan for this and they have to find an incident response firm, and then you have to deal with the, getting the payment to get that incident response firm moving. I mean, you could be 24, 48 hours down the road before they're even able to get started.
Yeah.
So
most MSP's mindset of incident response is, oh, we'll go on site and we'll clean up stuff. You can't do that anymore, guys, at all. Look at Dan Marrero's comment here as well. It's on the screen.
Is that different than an IR plan? So I think they go hand in hand. It's part of having an IR plan. So if you're really working with your customers properly, you're going to absolutely have an incident response plan. That incident response plan typically is going to include a list of contacts for certain things. Your incident response firm should be in there. So if it's an existing client of yours, having an incident response partner, the way that I would recommend doing it is you want to have that incident response partner get in touch with your customer's insurance provider so that they can make those negotiations, see if that incident response provider is going to be allowed to even work that incident response. It really depends on the insurance. Some of the insurance carriers require that you use a specific one that they have, or a group, or choose from a group that they have. But in a lot of cases, if you have that conversation well before a breach occurs in advance, you can get your incident response partner on the list to be able to respond, and that way you can start moving forward. It's all part of your plan. Another thing that we've talked a lot about lately is having that, why can't I think of the word? Retainer, there it is. Having the retainer set up and negotiated in advance as well, because that's another thing that you really got to think about, right? So if you can get that customer to have your retainer ready to go for the incident response in advance, and you keep it, when they have the incident, you have the retainer ready to go. You have the incident response partner ready to go. You have that negotiation with the insurance company. You can start immediately. What happens if you don't have any of those things put into place? What happens if it was a business email compromise and there's no money in that bank account for them to pay the retainer?
Yeah.
Now they can't even start incident response because they don't have the money to pay for it.
Yeah. So, something I would say too, Dan, is yes, it's basically the same as an incident response. And it's like incident response is like the overall thing. But having an IR plan for you internally is critical. And Dan's one of our elite members. So thanks for asking the question. You should have this for you internally, but you also should have a plan for every client. Like, what happens when we get breached, and what's the exact steps that we take? So good example, Dan. We saw how we had a gentleman get hit in our group last week, I think it was. And he's asking questions on the fly. Now, that's just part of what happens. you should be thinking every single one of your clients needs an IR plan, basically a blueprint to what happens step by step, one through step 8 or whatever. Boom, 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 boom. Here's what happens when there's a breach. We do this, we do this, we do this, we do this, we do this. And we already know we have some of these things qualified. Side note on that, guys, this is a huge differentiator for you from the people that, and we had a quote comment earlier, I can barely get $150 a seat because I keep getting undercut. We're talking apples and oranges, guys. Yep. Like, it's not even close to the same stuff anymore, but you have to differentiate yourself through your sales process, through your presentation process, through how you onboard them, talking about incident response. Like, this is all stuff about educating them. In fact, let's tell Cindy to do this, Ryan, making sure we have a slide in the deck specifically related to, let's review what your current incident response plan looks like. And that could be actually part of our sales presentation. There's something a little bit around it, but not nearly that detailed.
Yep. Got it.
There was a question here that just said, would it be safe to outsource this service? You don't really have a choice but to outsource the service, guys. You have to find an incident response partner. We work with 2 companies at 7-figure MSP. We work with SpearTip and we work with Antigen. Both of them are sponsors of our stuff. They're very solid. They have a full incident response team. They have a 24/7 hotline. Both of them have that. I wouldn't even attempt, like, your first call should be to them every time you have a breach. And it should be, and they actually should probably, that company should be written into the agreements and actually written in with the insurance company as an incident response partner. Those are the things you should be doing way ahead of time.
Yeah. And look, I get it. A lot of you probably can go through and look at different logs and trace down some information. Just remember, like, as good as you are and as much information as you're probably going to be able to pull forward for that situation, you are not still trained in incident response and forensics. There is so much more information that's there waiting to be found. And that's why you need to give this to the experts, the people who do this every single day. It's just that important, because the last thing you want is that insurance company to come to you and say, okay, you need to submit your report for your incident response, and then have them go, no, you're not qualified to do this. Claim denied.
Yeah, you want to get all of that done way ahead of time.
Yeah.
So, and you can show that you are ready to go by having it pre-approved.
And those are the things that help differentiate you, right? Like, you start talking about, I have trouble selling at $150 a seat in my area. If you're asking these questions and having these conversations when nobody else in your area is talking about this stuff, the difference in their minds between $150 a seat and $300 a seat is like next to nothing. One of my early deals that I sold, at the time I was a one-man show. The company the other MSP that I was going up against had 30 people. Their proposal was like less than a third of what I was proposing. And they signed in a heartbeat because I was talking about things that nobody else had talked to them about. And it's not made up stuff. This is all real stuff. If you're really in this industry, this stuff is happening every day. You know that it's happening to small businesses every day.
So got a couple
really,
questions
really important.
I want to hit here really quick. So Bruce just said pre-approved. So when we say this, when we say pre-approved, if you set out and build your incident response plan with your client, these are clients, not prospects, with your existing client, you say, here's what my plan is. Here's my chosen incident response partner. Let's go to your cybersecurity insurance provider and let's get them pre-approved on your policy as an incident response vendor. So when we have a breach, we don't have to wait for approval. They're already approved. It's done. Boom, boom. Because understand, the second you bring insurance in, your hands are tied, guys. You can't do anything. The big problem with incident response on breaches and hacks and ransomware and all this stuff is MSPs have it in their head. And I'm not saying you did this, Bruce, but MSPs have it in their head that it's just like cleaning up malware or just like cleaning up virus from 10 years ago. It's effectively a crime scene now. And the second you bring in insurance, side note, the second you bring in any medical provider, think about this. They have Medicare, Medicaid, all these things that are federal insurance scenarios here in the United States. Doctors don't get in trouble for just selling. Almost no doctors get in trouble for fraud when they have a cash practice. You know where they get in trouble? Insurance fraud. So the second an insurance company comes into play, you get like bent over hardcore. So you have to start thinking about all that stuff ahead of time and making sure it's in your plan and how you work with your clients. So hopefully that's clear.
Yeah. And sadly, like, it's never super clear until you've gone through an incident response, which I don't care how prepared you are, like, it's never a fun situation. Like, whether it's an existing client, it's definitely not fun. Even if it's somebody who just came to you because they got breached and they didn't know what else to do and they found you that way, it's still not fun helping somebody go through that. And I think that goes back to what we're talking about with this stack and the importance of cybersecurity. Like, having gone through that with people, I would much rather make less money having them protected in advance than making more money in a short period of time helping them get out of the mess that they're in because of that. So it's just, if you really, and I really feel strongly that MSPs deep down just want to help people, and that's why we're in this business, making sure that they're doing everything that they can on the front end is way better than having to help them out of these situations. But you're going to have that happen because nothing is 100%, and making sure that you did everything that you could to ease them through that and get them back up and running and fully whole again afterwards makes all the difference in the world. I'm going to kind of speed through some of these last ones. VCIO and vCISO services, another thing that you can add. Some additional I can't speak today. It's getting to the end of the day. Additional tips to building a profitable stack. Start every engagement with a CSRA to show value. It's not just about going in there, counting machines, counting heads, and giving them a price. When we do a CSRA, one, we're showing them that we're doing due diligence, that we really know what we're doing. You know, when you think about it deep down, it's more of a white glove approach in the first place. But two, we're educating our customers on why they need what we're talking about. If we just go in and pitch $300 a seat in cybersecurity, they're going to tell us to pound sand, and they're going to go with the guy who came in with the cheaper quote. If we can show them what their risk really looks like, if we can educate them on the most likely ways that they are going to be hacked, if we can make them understand that as a small business, just because they don't know a whole lot of people within their circle who have been hacked, or they don't see these things on the news, small business hacks happen every single day. In fact, it's probably the vast majority of hacks that are out there if you look at all of them and combined. But they're too small to make the news. It's not something that you're going to see. You may see it in the local paper. And the other thing is, their small business owner friends that they're talking to on a regular basis. This is a stigmatized thing. I would be willing to bet they know at least one other small business owner that's been hacked at least once. They just don't talk about it. So when we go in and really educate them on what their risk really is, instead of letting them base it on their assumptions of, I'm too small, no, I don't have anything that these hackers want, we know that that's so far from the truth, but they need to be educated on that. So at the end of the day, I never thought of myself as a salesperson when I was having these conversations. I was an educator. I'm trying to show them why they need this stuff, why it's important, because that's how I was helping them. Standardize your stack for scale and profitability. So another reason why the gold, silver, platinum, good, better, best kind of things didn't really work, in my opinion, was because, you know, one, like Chris said, if you give somebody 3 options, they're going to choose the lowest one, and they're going to feel quite happy about it because you presented it. That to them means it was good enough. But the other side of it is, now you've got 3 stacks that you need to manage, maybe more if you have those exceptions. So every time one of your techs gets a ticket, they have to stop, realize what that customer stack is, adjust how they're going to respond. The other thing too is, when you have a standard stack that is what you know that they need in order to, you know, because you're the expert in this world, it really reduces your tickets. You get people on the stack that you recommend, and you're not getting all of those BS tickets, because most of the stuff that we add into these stacks is not just to pad our numbers and to get more dollars out of them. It's because we know that these tools at the end of the day are going to protect them and likely reduce our ticket load. So you can be a lot more streamlined. You can have support more customers with less headcount if you're doing a standard stack. So really important thing there from an operational standpoint. Utilize managed solutions. We talked a lot about this. I'm not going to get as much into it again. But if you have a solution that somebody else can manage for you, like a managed EDR example I used earlier, just takes so much off of your plate. And it allows you to, when you get those opportunities, like, you know, maybe you have a 100-seat opportunity that you would normally have to stop and wait and hire somebody before you could even really qualify for, you can go after those opportunities and fill those needs. Sure, you may hire somebody down the road, but it doesn't need to stop you in your tracks and not be able to go after those opportunities because you know you can get anything that's out there. Choose the tools based on where you're going, not where you are. So like my example for this is with your PSA. So we have a lot of people, especially MSPs that are maybe just starting out or in the first few years of business, and they're choosing like super budget friendly PSAs and things like that, that as they grow are not going to give you all of the data that's going to be important as your business gets bigger. So like a lot of those budget PSAs will do tickets and time very well, but they don't have the tools to give you the KPIs that are going to help you manage your business as you grow and get bigger, to be able to see what your profitability is per agreement, things like that. So make sure when you're evaluating tools, you're looking at where you're going and not just where you're at right now. When you boil it down, it's a few extra bucks, but it's going to save you so much time down the road. Charge properly. This is a big one for a lot of people, and this is where you get into your own head a lot. You need to know what your value is. When we talk about this stack and building a profitable stack, we are talking about 70-80% margin. Okay. For what we're doing, especially with cybersecurity, the individual tools aren't the service. It's the whole thing. And it's the person running it. It's the person who curated that stack, who knows how to monitor it, who knows what the different things look like and how to tweak it as necessary. So that margin is value that you are providing to the table. So don't undercut yourself and go into those negotiations or those talks with your prospects thinking there's no way that they're ever going to pay $300 a seat. So I'm going to sell them this and only charge them $150 a seat, because now you're not making any money and you're probably not going to be doing them any good long-term, because you're going to be out of business in a couple of years because of that. So make sure that you charge properly. We got to get out of this hole that we dug as MSPs and not asking for the value of what we're providing.
And if you don't know how to charge properly, I'm going to talk about a way that you can learn how to do that coming at the end here.
Okay. Don't chase tools. The stack will never be perfect. A lot of people spend months trying to perfect their stack. I guarantee you're going to change at least one of those things in your stack in 6 months, even if you think it's perfect today. So just make sure you roll with it. The layers are there for a reason, because no single piece of this is ever going to stand up. There's always going to be weak points in it. That's why we have the layers. Adjust as necessary. Make sure that you are cybersecurity first. Follow a framework, NIST, CIS version 8, CMMC. Like if there's a vertical that you're serving that has a specific framework compliance requirement, I would recommend following that. Otherwise, just pick something, because you are going to need to follow a compliance framework at some point. All of these will likely map to whatever that framework ends up being, but start with one now, because trying to spin up and follow a framework from nothing to what that framework requirement might be is going to be a nightmare for you. Mapping from what you're doing right now to what the new framework is probably going to be a lot more streamlined process. But the biggest thing with all of this, be the expert. You absolutely need to walk into those meetings thinking and understanding and knowing that you're the expert, because it changes the way that you speak. And I know a lot of people have trouble with this and struggle with this and the imposter syndrome of it, but you know more than they do about this topic. They're just used to telling you what they want and how they want it and what they want to pay for it. You need to flip the script and go in there as the expert and really, really show them that value so that they understand what's really going on out there.
Yeah. Another thing I'll say to that is you have to walk in with a process and a plan and some structure. And if you're just winging it, it's going to be really difficult to pull any of this stuff off. You need a sales process. You need structure across the board, guys. And you better be talking cybersecurity first, top down.
Yep. You need to talk to them about what you know that they need, as opposed to them telling you what they think that they need. Now, I mean, we're taking questions as we go, but now we got some time for some specific questions too.
Yeah, I know there was a couple here. We talked a little bit about the CSRA piece. Just so you guys know, this was a question here. What CSRA are you promoting? And I said specifically, CSRA is a process, not a what. You should be running your own, utilizing multiple systems and tools. There's supposed to be a comma there. There's not one tool that you're going to run. And this is part of the challenge. Like, I understand that we got used to running one tool and just, okay, scan. give me the results, dump me a report. There's no such thing anymore, because you have to look at all these different scenarios. You should be looking at their bank accounts. You should be looking at their MFA across their entire company, across third-party vendors. You should be looking at any points of entry and showing them how much money they're at potentially risk of losing. Like, this is the stuff that we have to talk about. There's no tool that's going to give you that. You have to do research and you have to follow a system that is very specific. We have a system that we've built and a bunch of different things that we do, but none of it is around one tool that solves all your problems. You still have to have discovery questions, and you still have to have a CSRA process that gets, at the end of the day, the amount of risk they potentially might have. You have to think like the hackers do. Like, if the hackers get into their bank account, then what? Like, think about that kind of stuff. So it's not just what CSRA tool are you promoting. We're not promoting anything. We're promoting a system and a process and a strategy.
In fact, we specifically don't promote specific tools. And that's why when I was talking about the stack stuff, I was talking about categories of tools. But the CSRA, I think, like, from a tech-minded person to probably a room full of tech-minded people, is actually kind of fun. It gives you an opportunity. You get to think like the hacker, because this is what hackers are doing. This is why when a hacker gains entry to an environment, it's 3 to 6 months before they deploy anything, because they're basically doing their own CSRA. They're looking for all the stuff, all the risk and all of that. This is a fun process. It's really interesting.
Yep. So do you advise charging clients for writing new policies, or do you include this in your monthly per seat pricing? So we have a partnership with a company called Policy Source that gives you a pack of policies. Now, it's very broad because you can't, like, you could probably have a lump blob of policies for your general client, and then you're going to have to start doing it compliance based. My suggestion to this, now, number one, there's two things that we could talk about. Policies, insurance policies, don't touch them. Stay away from them. Refer people in. That's what I would do. Establish a relationship either with an MSP type vendor, like in Skyber or Willow Risk is who runs them, or TechRug, etc., or partner with a local independent insurance agent that you can do a referral relationship with. That's a great opportunity. That's insurance side. Now, in terms of like internal policies, I would have a blob that you include, like 6 or 8, 10, whatever policies that are standard. Policy Source has that as part of their deal. Where I would get into, where I think charging it is critical, is the second somebody comes in needing compliance, you should be charging for policies and compliance, and you should be charging for compliance management and that, because those companies now have to have policy management as well.
Yeah.
Ryan, any thoughts on that from you?
Yeah, that's the way that I look at it. So to me, the difference was, if you're an existing client of mine and you're on our full stack cyber plan, I would provide a certain course, a pack of templates, but it was your responsibility as the customer to make sure that you edited those templates for yourself and then implemented those, and the responsibility of managing them was on your own. The second that customer either had a requirement for actual compliance, like they needed to comply to something specific and they needed a specific set of templates, or they wanted us to manage it for them, like, that's a whole different ball of wax just from a liability and responsibility standpoint. Because if you're not doing it properly and they get audited and they get in trouble for something, they're pointing the finger at you. So that's when you start getting into that larger level of compliance management. And I think, that's a whole nother ball game too, as far as assessments. Like, a compliance assessment is going to be even more detailed and involved than a cybersecurity risk assessment.
Yeah. Okay. Another question here that just came in from Bruce. Is there an ecosystem that you recommend or that you use that brings the most tools together? I'm going to tell you right now, it's our Elite program. I'm a little biased, but our members can talk about it too. We're actively working in this. So I'll talk about that in a few minutes, Bruce, so you can take a look at it. But our Elite coaching program, if you're over 10K in MRR, as far as I'm concerned, like, this has been built by MSPs for MSPs. I'm very proud of what we built over the last 5-6 years here. And we are very, very forward thinking across the entire board with all this stuff. Ryan, any take from you on that?
No, I 100% agree. I mean, those are conversations we have all the time. It's like, okay, here's what we're doing now. What's the next thing? What's the next thing after that? And we're having those conversations. Chris is a recovering MSP. I'm a recently recovering MSP. We're in this space because it's what we enjoy, and then we're bringing that to you guys as well. So we're always looking for that opportunity to add value.
So Frank said, how do you come up with a 50 to 60% profit margin? Keep in mind, we advise an 80%. If you are not here, this is going to get to be probably it's too deep for this call, but it's worth having a discussion with us, Frank. So I'd book a call with us and see. But here's what I'll tell you on this. Most MSPs don't track their time. They don't track their burden. They don't track their costs. They don't track their expenses. So it's almost impossible to figure out what your actual profit margin is when you don't that's like using your bank account, but never using QuickBooks, right? I mean, it doesn't matter if you all you know is how much money you got. There's no idea if you're not tracking anything. So what we like to do out of the box is we get the MSP starting to think about money and thinking about sales and thinking about, okay, in best case scenario, here's what we think it's going to be. So we want you to start. Your baseline price should start at $300 per month per seat that you charge. Now and we do a whole series of sales webinars that are not tech stack related that we can send you a replay for, and you can watch me and Cindy. But this is what we effectively teach you how to do inside of our elite program, is teach you how to sell the right way. Our baseline is $300 a seat at 36-month agreement. Now there's more to it than that. But the baseline idea around the $300 per seat is getting you to around an 80% gross profit margin. Now that varies. I understand that varies. It varies but we got to start somewhere. Here's what I would probably do if I were you. Forget what your costs are right now. If you want to do this for me right now, Frank, look at what your monthly billables are, meaning how much money are you bringing in every month, either MRR or otherwise. Forget projects, but look at your standard monthly recurring revenue. Take that and divide it by how many seats you have. The average that comes into this discussion is $68 a seat.
Mm-hmm.
So MSPs are well, I charge $197. Okay, well, how are you averaging $68? You're screwing yourself with all these small guys, probably, if you're even charging that, or you're just allowing too many variables to come in. So we want you to be in a place, and I'll talk about a couple of case studies here that I have in a few minutes here, but we want you to be pushing 300 a seat on average is what you should be pushing. And I got a case study that we'll talk about with that. So if you want, Frank, put your number in there that I just had you calculate, and we'll talk about it a little bit more. Let's hit a couple other questions here. Ryan, you answered Bruce's stuff. This is from Jane Kimberly here. How do insurance policies differentiate in coverage and response strategies when addressing breaches stemming from internal sources versus those original? Honestly, in the beginning, I'm not an insurance expert, nor am I an attorney, so I can't really speak fully to this, but here's what I've seen. They all start the investigation exactly the same way. Mm-hmm. And they don't determine it's an internal thing until they get to that point. Now, what do you define as internal? An internal breach would only be a bad employee or an internal bad actor. Just because the breach came from an internal employee allowing somebody in, that's still an external breach. So it's still going to have the same IR. It's still going to you have to treat every single breach exactly the same, because you don't know where it came from until you're done with the investigation and forensics, which is probably going to take anywhere from 30 days to 180 days. Ryan?
And I would argue that the same monitoring is probably even more important in that scenario to catch those employees, because that's something that they don't just do overnight and in a one-shot thing. That's where I think not all SaaS monitoring platforms are the same. Some of the really good ones out there are going to give you the telemetry that shows that somebody's downloading a lot more files than they should. So you're likely to catch that stuff. All of it is, whether it's an external breach or an internal breach, having all of those monitoring tools in place to see when those types of things happen. Internal breach is going to be even more important for that.
Yeah. Okay, last couple things I got here from Bruce again. Is policy management referring to insurance policies? I think I kind of clarified that. He specifically stated he wanted internal procedural policies, but I referenced insurance policies a little bit. But I agree with what Bruce is saying. You should be, having a blob stack of standard stuff, and then deal with compliance as a service and policy management as a service as you get into compliance related industries.
And that's specifically, right. You probably do not want to purposely manage their insurance policies. We are not insurance experts. You want to be very careful.
Do not even touch it. You actually have to have a license to quote and manage insurance. I would not touch it. Okay. Any other questions you saw, Ryan, that we need to address?
Let's see. No, I think that's it.
Okay. All right, guys, I'm going to keep going here. I'm going to talk a little bit about our 7-figure MSP Inner Circle program. Before I get into that, there were some people that were asking about a replay. If you're watching this on a streaming destination, all you got to do is, as soon as the webinar is over, click play, and it's going to start over. Whatever platform you're watching it on. So if it's on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, boom. If you're watching us with us on StreamYard webinar, you will get an email with the replay link today. Okay, so that's coming out right after this webinar is over. Okay. Next couple things. Here's a good example of our elite program. Now we have a baseline in our elite program if you need to be 10,000 a month of revenue or more, preferably recurring revenue, so we can go back and talk to some existing clients quickly. Here's a great example of a smaller MSP. Brian Wooster is in Bakersfield, California. Great example. Joined our elite program August 24th, 2023. First closed deal 20 days later, roughly 21 days later, 22 days later. 5 presentations in 4 weeks, 4 contracts signed, and a total of 7,800 new MRR in his first month, guys. So that's a great example of a smaller MSP. The bigger you are, the better the results are that you're going to have. I'm going to tell you that right now. If you're under $10,000 in recurring revenue, we do have a program called 0 to 10K. This is a monthly program. It's a minimum 1-year commit. It's $147 a month. You can buy it right now if you want to get it. If you're over 10K MRR, I wouldn't do this. You want coaching. You want real stuff. You want to go fast. But if you're a newer MSP, all of this is a self-paced course that you go through with a community in a platform called School that we walk you through. It's really great. It's really solid stuff. You can go to 0to10k.com. You can hit the QR code if you want to as well. But you can buy that right now on the fly. You can watch a little video from me and buy it on the fly if you want. I would not, I'll say this again, I would not recommend getting 0 to 10K if you're over $10,000 a month in revenue. I'd focus on getting into our elite program because that's where we see the real stuff happen. Not saying 0 to 10K doesn't work. Same basic concept, but it's all self-paced. There's very little coaching. It's just part of the deal. Ryan, anything you want to say on that?
No, I agree 100%. And you know, just a lot of what we do, it revolves around accountability. Like I can talk to any MSP any day of the week and they all agree with the concepts that we're talking about. But when it comes down to actually getting in there and doing the work, that's where some people need a push. So if you've already got 10K in MRR, Elite's a no-brainer because you get that additional accountability, you know, that drive, that motivation that's just going to help you even further on top of more content.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, next up, you heard me mention our elite program. I'm going to walk you guys through that. This is a full sales and marketing coaching program that helps our goal is to double your MRR in 12 months or less. So we have our entire double your MRR sales system. You get, as part of this is a monthly fee, and it is a 12-month commit. I'm going to go through the pricing in a minute, but it is a complete sales onboarding process live. You start with me. In fact, today was onboarding, our weekly onboarding. It was me and Ryan O'Hara live on a call for 90 minutes. We get everybody that's going and we meet with them every single week. Cindy Phillips then takes over Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays every single week. And we walk through getting you launched into the program, getting you quick wins, getting you moving. This is active real-time live group coaching, not a self-paced course like 0 to 10K. So you work with Chris, Ryan, Cindy, real time, 4 days a week for your first 30 to 60 to 90 days, depending on how fast you go. You saw Brian Wooster. He was going pretty quick. He had a lot of clients that were hot and he went and he executed really, really quickly. So that's a good example. We also have a weekly sales open office hours. That's 3 times a week, Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. They're open. And my suggestion is you never work a single deal alone ever again. That's what we do, right? We also, on top of that, have our full marketing coaching program with our marketing coach. Lindsay Badillo is our head marketing coach. She runs the full marketing machine. Once a month, she redoes her full marketing machine onboarding. You have to graduate sales coaching to get into marketing machine. That also has 3 different weekly open office hours that Lindsay and her team run. Really good stuff. But again, marketing takes a lot of effort built into the program and it works really, really well. We also include a ton of proposals, presentation, and agreement templates. So you get our full cybersecurity sales presentation. That's a white label, full-blown PowerPoint. You get our full cybersecurity sales proposal. That is a white label, full Word doc. You get our risk acceptance letter template along with all of the sales coaching that comes around that. You also get our full master service agreement template and our statement of work templates included, our full cybersecurity incident response plan template. So we talked about the incident response plan stuff earlier. That full thing comes included as well. You also get discounted access to the Ultimate MSP Contract Kit and weekly legal advice call. In fact, today at 2 p.m. Central, about 2 hours ago, Paige Bennett did her weekly legal advice call. So every week, our internal counsel answers your legal questions and educates you on what to do next. She's not your attorney, but she can work with you and give you advice. So that's all included in part of the deal.
Those calls are great, by the way. Today was the first day I actually sat in on one of those. They're really good.
Paige is a bulldog, man. She's a lot of fun,
awesome.
and she's just pushes. It's crazy. It's really good stuff. We also have these process structures and tools. So you guys were talking about the CSRAs. We have our full 7-figure MSP risk assessment system that includes the product called Telivy, Telivy. You guys are welcome to look at it. It's telivy.com. It includes that product. You get 100 endpoints for 90 days included with it, and then you get a 50% off discount rate as being in the program. So the full system and the process that we talked about there is included, along with our hiring machine to help you hire techs. All that stuff's there. You get on the marketing side our full MSP CRM. That's Wisetack CRM, powered by High Level. Coaching included on that. You get all our marketing campaigns that come built into Wisetack, our email nurture software and MSP website also built into Wisetack, all there for you guys. So what's the next step? You guys saw all the things that we include inside of the Elite program. Here's kind of like honestly, I'm not even hitting the full deal on the $15,000 a month, but you got all that stuff there. My special offer for you today with that, 12 months of our Elite coaching program. It is a $2,000 a month program, $24,000 a year. You see the kind of numbers that Brian Wooster had. That's a great example. Now, coming up on top of that, I do have a fast action bonus for you guys. If you guys actively book your call right now, I'm going to give you a link in a second here. If you book your call right now on the webinar with me, I'll give you $250 off per month for a cost of $1,750 per month. So retail price on a 12-month commit is $2,000 a month. If you book your fast action bonus call right now, I'll show you the link in a second. Ryan, if you want to throw it in the chat for me in a second, you can do that as well. Do it all on the chat for me so we can get it to all platforms. Mm-hmm. You get $250 off a month for $1,750. You got to book your call now, and you got to pay attention and tell Jose. So again, here's all your Elite stuff that we got. Oh, shoot, before we even get to the link, let's talk about the guarantees. I got a couple of guarantees for you guys. So, hey, Chris, I don't know if this program will work. I think it's a scam. I'm nervous to commit. Ryan's ugly. Whatever, Chris is ugly. Got chubby Chris back, all that stuff. Is there a guarantee? So here's my guarantees. I got 2 of them for you guys. Guarantee number 1, just to show you I believe in so much, we have a full 90-day money back guarantee. Now, there are a couple of caveats on this. Number 1, you can't come in here, sign up for the program, download all the stuff, and leave. It's not going to happen. So you have to participate in the work. We have this in the agreement. You have to actually show up on the calls for 90 days. You have to do your stuff. You have to actually show up at your clients and do your first 3 CSRAs and present and all these different things. So if you do all of that work and you feel I'll see no ROI, it's just not worth it, or it won't work in my market, I will refund your money in full, no questions asked. I have never had this requested in 6 years. So you get 90 days to do that work. You're going to make your money. The bottom line is in the program. If you do the work, it works. It's that simple. I added a second guarantee because nobody cashes in the first one. If you participate in all the work and attend all the calls and do all the same stuff in your first 90 days and don't make at least your investment back, so your $2,000 or your $1,750 back in your first 90 days. So basically pay for the program by adding new clients or adding new revenue from existing clients. I'll just write you a check for that amount. Again, never been requested. I'm not going to sit here and say everybody wins. Not everybody wins, because not everybody puts in the work. That's like a personal trainer saying every one of my people gets in the best shape of their life. No, because you can't control the anomalies. You can't control the variables. Here's where you can book your call. If you book your call right now, you get $250 off. If you want to be in the program, you can also check out 0 to 10K. It's ZEROTO10K.com, 0to10K.com. If you want, somebody just asked about, is there a Chris Weiser Sucks t-shirt included? If you want a Chris Weiser Sucks t-shirt, I will get you a Chris Weiser Sucks t-shirt. You just got to book your call and sign up. In fact, we should just include that as part of a new join offer.
I kind of think we should. It's just,
That
getting them
You know
in
what?
with the right
Done.
mindset.
Done. We're doing that from now on. New member bonus, Chris Weiser Sucks t-shirt and matching mug.
Oh, nice.
I just made that shit up on the fly. Michelle is going to kill me.
She probably is, but I definitely want one of those mugs.
Yeah, I don't even make the mug yet, but we'll make it. Okay, so that's where you can book your call. All right, here's what we got. Coming up next, we got prizes here, okay? So I'm going to leave this up so you guys can book your call. Ryan put the URL in the chat for you guys. We are going to add on top of it a Chris Weiser Sucks t-shirt and coffee mug. Big fan. Like that, Ryan. Good idea. I want you to put in the chat. We are going to set a timer for 2 minutes. On my phone locked. And we're going to start this right now. So what is one thing you can take out of today's webinar? Here's our timers going right now. There's one thing you can take out of today's webinar and put into action in your MSP right now. Probably none of Ryan's content because Ryan sucks. I love you. You know that.
I know.
This is the employee owner relationship we have here. It's like,
I mean, honestly, this is kind of like the community relationship. We kind of have this relationship with
that's
both
not a
the
lie.
members.
Yeah, especially when Dan Marrero's in here, like, is the Chris Weiser Sucks t-shirt included?
I mean, that's worth mentioning though. Like, it's, all of the stuff that Chris mentioned, like, to me, the reason I was in there for 5 years with my MSP, the reason
this is what he does. Look at this jerk.
Yes.
I love
the community. You cannot beat our community. Like, the people are just different. Everybody wants to see everybody else succeed.
I like this. Here's so Ryan, you're going to have to pick 2 winners out of this. Keep in mind, guys, if you win, you got to put your company email in the chat. And it's only our webinar people that can win. So you got to be on StreamYard with us to win. Here's from Barry Winthrop. I'll have one plan. That's my best plan. Love it, man. Good job. It's from Melanie. I need to always do a client discovery risk assessment and have negotiations with my clients and their insurance company. Love that. Melanie been listening. She knows about the risk sandwich. So I love that. Things have changed in the MSP industry. Now I need to sell and leave with cybersecurity by having a ready and working full stack plan. Love that. I'll turn on the risk light bulb because if I don't, I will not create that lead. Awesome, Nancy. Bruce said an incident response firm would be a huge opportunity for us. Love that. Great job, Bruce. You're listening. Good job. Mark Cristobal said focus on sales and lead gen first and foremost. Robin said this one hit home. I will always embrace my expertise and stop allowing my clients to dictate my path of service as I know better. Think about it like if you're a doctor.
Mm-hmm.
Think about it like that. I always want you guys to just, because you're the same. Keep in mind, I know we didn't go to school for 35 years to be a doctor, blah, 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 blah. But you're almost more important to a business now than any of that stuff because you are the last line of defense between them and stupid. I should put that on a t-shirt.
We come up with so many t-shirt ideas any given day. It's ridiculous.
Scott said, develop your security stack. Brian said, focus on cybersecurity, lead the convo. Bruce said, an incident response firm would be a huge opportunity. We are at time. I forgot to put an alarm on. Getting right, man. There's so many good comments here.
Yeah.
You guys are killing it today. Not worried about the stack. I love it. Okay. Okay. Time's up. Ryan O'Hara, I want you to pick your, you're welcome to put this on the screen if you want to. I would like you to pick your number one $75 gift card winner. It's my drum roll.
Boom.
Robin Watson. This one hit home. I love that. Good job, Robin Watson. Robin, do me a favor. Put in the chat, in the webinar chat, your work business MSP email address. If you don't do that, we will not come get you. Somebody just asked this question. I type so little, I don't even know what the hell you're talking about. I think Michelle wrote that. I don't even know what it is. So I didn't even, did you see it? I didn't see it.
I didn't see it yet.
I didn't even know what you're talking about. Okay. So the answer, Christine, is no, I did not. But I'm a good delegator. I'm a very good delegator.
Yes.
So congratulations, Robin Watson. Okay. Next one coming up. Here comes our $100 Amazon gift card winner. Keep in mind, if you're in Canada or overseas, we will get you cash, money, records, no problem. Drum roll on the second one. My light literally just fell off the table.
Nice.
That's hilarious. Okay, Barry Winthrop. I'll have one plan. That's my best plan. I freaking love it, brother. Great job. Do me a favor, Barry. Put your work email address in the chat. My camera's all out of whack. Everything's out of whack. My entire ring light just fell off the desk because I was drumming so hard. So Barry, put your email address for your MSP in the chat, please. Ryan, do me a favor and just track these. There we go.
Yeah.
You guys are from the same freaking company?
What?
Yeah, they're from the same company.
Wow.
Good job, Ryan. Way to go, dummy.
Well, clearly they have good company core values and
Good job, guys. Wait, that wasn't even. That's just part of the deal. That's just because you got good answers. Good job. I guess somebody's buying. Hey, you guys need your Windy Flex Security. What city are you guys from, Barry and Robin? Because you're gonna come buy me a beer or something. All right. Anyway, and Dan is still laughing here. Dan is still laughing. So literally my whole light just fell off the back of the desk, for the record, guys. That was hilarious. Okay. Couple things as we part ways here. Book your strategy calls. We are a great company. Our clients are actively watching these webinars right now. They're from Eugene, Oregon. I'm not coming up there, so I guess you're going to have to come to Austin or come to one of our live events because you owe me a beer now. Second thing, book your strategy. First thing, book your strategy calls. Second thing, you got to think about your stack and you got to think about risk. This is really, really, really critical now. The days of just floating along as an MSP, and I'm not ripping on anybody, but let's be honest. How many MSPs are floating along, right? They're floaters for a lot. Set it and forget it. So I want you to think about that. And Ryan, you did a great job today. I'm very proud of you. Great webinar. It's really good stuff. We'll see the rest of you guys soon. Have a great day.
See you later, everybody.
Bye-bye.